We're really excited about today's podcast. We're going to be taking you all the way down to Louisiana.
Yes, down south on the bayou.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the Cajun culture and a little bit about the southern plantations and a little bit about Longfellow-Evangeline State Historic Park.
That's where we're going.
So put your seatbelts on.
Because here we go.
This is RV Destinations Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the RV Destinations Podcast. I am Randy Beheimer. I'm the president of RV Destinations Magazine. Here beside me, I got my lovely wife and editor-in-chief of RV Destinations Magazine, Caly. Beheimer, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in, whether you're tuning in from YouTube or one of our many audio podcast platforms. And today, we got a doozy. We just left a few months ago from the area.
It wasn't even a few months.
It's been less than a few months?
It has been, yeah.
Okay. Well, very recently, we left the southern Louisiana area, and we just, honestly, this has been something that Caly's wanted to go to for a long time, and I was just I love the food, but I was indifferent to going, and I walked away blown away. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. You want to bring on our guest today?
I am going to. We have with us from the Longfellow-Evangeline State Historic Site, which obviously in Louisiana, Philip Frey, and he is the interpretive ranger. And when I did this tour, I did the tour with you, which was incredible, which is why we invited you onto the podcast, because you did such an amazing job. So hi, Philip. How are you doing today?
I'm pleased as punch to be with you again.
Awesome. Hopefully it's like fruit punch. That sounds good.
Sure. Well, rum punch. This is South Louisiana.
Oh, even better.
There you go.
I like it. Yeah, right.
And this is going to be such a fun podcast because Philip knows. Actually, I want to call him Ranger Philip.
Philip.
Do you mind if we call you that?
This is my 14th year doing this, and people have called me Ranger Phil, Mr. Phil, Ranger Fry, just whatever makes you happy, you do it.
Ranger Phil, that has a nice ring too. Okay, so you're going to be
Ranger Phil.
Ranger Phil.
We're going to christen you Ranger Phil, but he's got such an in-depth knowledge on the area, and that's one of the main reasons we wanted to bring him on. Plus, he is ahead of the site at Longfellow there, Evangeline, that we're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. But he also, one thing that's really appealing to me is you're also a chef. Is that right, or you've got a lot of cooking background? Is that what it was?
I do have, a lot of cooking background. So I'm not the manager here. My manager's name is Natalie, but I am the ranger that's been ranging here the longest.
Okay.
But yeah, as for the cooking, I decided years ago that rather than be a chef that very much enjoyed history, I would rather be a historian that enjoys cooking, because I don't think I could spend my life trapped in a professional kitchen getting yelled at. So instead, I range and cook for the family and friends, right?
Oh, awesome.
Oh, that's fabulous. And we'll touch on that a little bit later, too, because I when we were chatting, you told me about some cooking classes that you do there at the park, which is really neat.
Why don't we start off, maybe going all the way back, and we've got a mix of Cajun and Creole that kind of comes together there in the southern Louisiana, and that's it goes from New Orleans all the way up to Lafayette, and that's all in that area, correct?
Well, so when we're talking about this, we have to be kind of specific, right? Mm-hmm. To bring it all the way back, Creolite, or the essence of what is Creole, is pan-Caribbean, right? It's not Louisiana-centric.
Okay.
All of what was once the French and Spanish colonies in the New World are part of this overarching world that we call Creole, right? Mm-hmm. So this begins with the first usage of the word Creole in Louisiana denoted a slave that was born here, because a Creole slave was worth more money. They were their first language was French. They were immune to diseases like smallpox, things like that. But later, after arrivals of other white French or Spanish-speaking settlers into the colonies, early settlers started to refer to themselves as Creole as well.
Okay.
To sort of use this nativist sentiment to say we are Creole, where our ancestors were born here, sort of forgetting that there were, a million natives that lived here before them,
Right.
So into that milieu, you have the Acadians arrive after the Grand Arrangement, the exile from Acadie, starting in 1755. So into this already French, Spanish, African, Native American, Creolite milieu, you have these French-speaking Catholic Acadians that become part of what is Creole culture, but they maintain their identity as Acadian exiles and those who we today call the Cajuns, right?
Gotcha.
Fascinating.
And the Acadians, you told us very, very well. You actually went in very in depth. So they were up in Canada, and basically the crown was trying to force Christianity onto them. Is that correct? Is that, or do I have the story in reverse?
So there's a lot to it, right? And we don't want to oversimplify, but yeah, you have this issue that they are neutral French Catholics, and England gains control of Acadie after the 7 Years' War, or with the Treaty of Utrecht. So England gains control of it and tries to get these French Catholic neutrals to sign an oath of allegiance to the English king. Well, in so doing, that would be sort of renouncing the Pope and signing an oath to who was the head of the Anglican Church, right? The King of England. So
gotcha.
Not only did they not want to sign that oath because it's politically damaging, it was also religiously damaging to them. They thought they would be renouncing their faith to sign that oath.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
All right. And so at that point, they were exiled from Canada, essentially what we know as Canada now, and made their way down eventually to the New Orleans, Lafayette area, and kind of mixed with the
It took
culture.
9 years.
9 years. Okay.
9 years of exile.
Wow.
Okay. Very, very fascinating. And the people in the area were already speaking French anyway, correct? Because that was, I know there was trading back and forth between the Spanish and the French there in New Orleans more specifically. Well, I guess in Lafayette as well. And so they probably felt somewhat at home being there, correct? Because they were French speaking as well.
So 1763, Spain gained control of Louisiana. French gave them Louisiana, essentially. And there's a lot to it. I'm simplifying. But the Spanish recognized that in the Acadian population, what they had was a bunch of Catholic, anti-British farmers. And what did Spain need in Louisiana? They needed to feed themselves. So they saw the Acadian exiles as an opportunity and invited them to settle into Louisiana. They gave them tools and seed crops and cattle and land. And the Acadians took that gift and ran with it. And by 1800, you're talking about between 8,000 and 20,000 Acadian settlers had arrived in Louisiana.
Oh, wow. Wow. And then you get this blending of cultures. You get this blending in food and music, and you could see it all over the area, which is just amazing. We just fell in love with not only the people, but the music, the culture, the food.
Oh, the food. The food.
Oh, we took some of your recommendations.
I know the food.
Yes.
The food is incredible. And y'all had the distinct opportunity of seeing sort of Cajun country and seeing New Orleans. And New Orleans is different, by virtue of being, the oldest port city on the Gulf. New Orleans is more the northernmost hub of the Caribbean rather than being the southernmost port in the United States.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So New Orleans Creolite is a very, very pan-Caribbean, vibrant, different sort of Creole culture. You see more of the blending in the countryside around us, where there's not a strong delineation between what is Cajun and what is Creole, because by virtue of people living, elbow to elbow with each other. My Black Creole neighbors are cooking gumbo the exact same way I'm cooking it.
Right.
You have to go to New Orleans to find it be wildly different.
Yeah. Maybe let's talk about that, because there was this blending of culture. Maybe talk a little bit, since you're so aware of the food and the ingredients that go into it. Maybe tell us a little bit about, we noticed a big difference. What do we have? Cajun?
We had Cajun and Creole food.
But which one do we have? And we're like, wow, this is different. This is made with a brown gravy.
It was the roux.
The roux.
Yeah, the brown roux. Yeah, which was very different.
So historically, and obviously, I approach things as a historian, but historically, Acadians brought some techniques with them. But remember, they're leaving Eastern Canada, which is wildly different than South Louisiana in climate, in agriculture, in everything, So they bring with them some techniques, and they bring with them some traditional meals. They bring with them folklore, and in folklore we call foodways, right? They bring foodways with them, but they arrive in a Creolized society that had already adapted to the foodways in this climate, to the agriculture that you can grow here. You're no longer growing things like barley and wheat and rye because it's too hot for that. You're growing corn and rice instead, right? So Acadians arrive here and have to adapt to that already Creolized food pattern, food tradition, right? In the 21st century, though, now what we're referring to as Cajun food is just a little bit more rustic than what we refer to as Creole food. Now, it's not historically accurate to say it's Cajun and Creole because they're really quite similar, you know?
Sure.
But now in the foodways tradition, when we say Creole food, what we usually mean is New Orleans cosmopolitan Creole food versus the pastoral food of the countryside, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, that makes
sense.
The dark roux. Yeah, the dark roux, the gravies, the fried food. The New Orleans, you still get the fried food, but they serve it with a fancy sauce, and it's you know, they have sauciers and different line chefs. That in Cajun culture, you can provide this whole meal with 2 people. You know,
Right.
Yep,
Right.
Yep. Now the food's one of the most exciting things for me always when we come to anywhere in southern Louisiana. But let's turn our sights onto the plantation. So, you know, one of the big draws of the area, of course, is the plantations. And I know we saw, 5 or 6 different plantations?
Yeah, we visited quite a few. So we obviously Longfellow-Evangeline. We saw Oak Alley, Lafayette Museum, which was the Mouton House, Shadows on the Teach, or Tetch, sorry, Rosedown, Tesh. Rosedown, we stopped by and just saw the Whitney Plantation and several other plantations.
oh yeah, Whitney's dynamic. Whitney's gorgeous.
Yeah, and it's incredible how incredibly different all of the plantations are. And for me, it was a big eye-opener because I always thought the plantation was the home. Like you went and saw a plantation and that is the home. And getting there and learning and realizing that the plantation was actually the entire farm, which was interesting for me. I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. So tell us some about,
Yeah, and that's great that you mention all of those because you know what's different about all of those plantations is that the Moutons, for example, were Acadian planters.
Ah, okay.
Our plantation home is the Oliviers. These are Creole planters, right?
Okay.
The folks who built Rosedown and Shadow on the Teche were American planters.
Oh.
So not only do the plantations look different because they represent the architectural traditions and agricultural traditions that those people are coming from, those plantations operated differently. They were very different. Rosedown is huge. It's got the giant Doric columns. It's the landscaping because in the American planter tradition, they're rebuilding English aristocracy. They're building manor homes that they're entertaining in, and it's that lush, vibrant, planter lifestyle. These Creole plantations tend to be smaller. They're working places. Because their home is not that plantation. Their home is in New Orleans.
Right.
And the plantation is a place where they work, right?
Yep. And that was fascinating for me to learn that. Like, oh, I never really knew that. I just thought you go to, southern Louisiana to see the huge plantation homes.
Right. Well, and it's part of absence of evidence is not, evidence of absence, right? What remains in the 21st century of plantation sites, unfortunately, many instances is only the grand home itself.
Right.
So in the American mind, when we think plantation, we think the home that the white owners of the plantation live in.
Correct. So
but you're absolutely right. The plantation is, it's the people, it's the land, it's all of the buildings. It's this small microcosm of society built on the backs of enslaved peoples.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I know it's difficult to simplify a plantation, but can you try to simplify a plantation for our listeners that may not be familiar with what is a plantation? Maybe talk a little bit about the crop. I know we saw a lot of sugar fields and different things, maybe rice, and maybe talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
You came to the right shop because one of our biggest things we do is school kids. We get into costume and we do tours for school groups, right?
Oh, fun!
And in this case, it's a lot of fun, but you have to be able to, talk to sophomores in high school and be able to give the same tour a little bit simplified for third graders, right?
Sure.
So I'll simplify it for you, right? Every plantation is a farm, but not every farm is a plantation.
Okay.
They both have food crops. They both have animal crops, right? But a plantation runs on three things. It's a three-legged stool. And if you kick out any leg of that stool, it crumbles. And those things are free labor through enslavement, a cash crop, and readily available cheap land. Those are the big three of the plantation economy. So think about it. If you kick out the land and make land expensive, a plantation can't exist. If you have to pay your workforce, a plantation can't exist, right? So it's that cash crop, enslavement, and arable land that makes a plantation. Cash crops in Louisiana were usually things like sugar in our districts. Further north, it was cotton and things like that. And then, of course, as you get further east into the eastern seaboard colonies, you see a lot more cotton. You see tobacco. You see rice in Georgia and the Carolinas. So those are, indigo was another one that was here, which is a bush crop that produces blue dye, because blue is not a color that readily appears often in nature as a dye. So indigo is very expensive. And they planted that here briefly until they turned to sugar. Sugar became the white gold of South Louisiana well into the 20th century. I mean, it was only eclipsed by petroleum exploration in the early 20th century. Had it not been for those wildcatters in 1901 discovering oil, sugar would still be our main cultural export, our main commodity.
Wow.
So maybe on a small scale, what would be a small scale of how many workers would be on a plantation versus some of the larger ones that you've seen?
So, yeah, I mean, our plantation, we always have to, again, plantation culture is not monolithic. Our plantation was around 400 acres, of which 200 to 250 of it's in sugar production, which would require 35 to 50 enslaved people. We know the names of 14 of those 35. But just based on other plantations in the South that were the same size, that's what you'd need. But then you travel further down the bayou, and really what you have to do is the closer you get to New Orleans, the larger and more successful the plantations get, because you can get that produce to market much faster. You can buy slaves much quicker. It's just New Orleans is the hub, right? And the further you go out on the spokes of the wheel, the less successful your plantations are. So we're pretty far out, But as you get closer, you see the River Road plantations, Laura, the Whitney, Oak Alley. I mean, we're talking about plantations that are 5,000, 8,000 acres with 300, 400 slaves, If you look at it as a class system, which is what it was, the plantocracy, right? The planter class. You had this top 1% that owned over 500 slaves. And then this huge middle ground of people that own between 40 and 500, right? And then the small plantations like we are, that was like less than 50,
Okay.
Oh, gotcha.
And that was the bulk of slave ownership in the world or in South Louisiana and in America were those smaller planters, that owned between 5 and 50,
Love's RV stops are conveniently located at Love's travel stops across the country. Let Love's be a part of your journey on your next RV trip. With over 100 RV stop locations nationwide, you can reserve an RV spot overnight and turn on amenities all from your phone. With over 420 dog parks, they've even got your furry family members covered. They are the perfect pit stop for everyone on the road. Fuel up, grab a bite to eat, and stay the night at Love's. Download the Love's app to save on fuel, snacks, and book your RV stay. And use code DESTINATIONS10 for 10% off your next RV booking. Love's, the heart of the highway.
So one other thing I want to talk about the history, and then I want to come back to your plantation there. How did the ending of the Civil War and all the things that were changing in America there, how did that affect the plantations?
Well, so here you had the Federal Army march through 1863. The Tesh campaign is what they called it. It was a bloodless campaign. The Federal Army figured out fairly early on that it could collapse the Confederacy economically. If you defeat them economically, you didn't need to defeat them on the battlefield. And they did that in a bunch of ways. They would block up and blockade Confederate ports so they couldn't get imports, couldn't get things like gunpowder and bullets imported, right? But also the Tesh campaign, they just marched through and they burnt down all the sugar mills, So now you don't have the mill to harvest the sugar, to raise money to pay for the army, and in so doing, they're driving off enslaved populations. So those planters' kids that are fighting the war have to come back and help them rebuild the farm. So they're losing troops, they're losing their workforce, they're losing their ability to mill their produce, right? So this plantation, like most plantations in South Louisiana, were destitute after the war because the Federal Army burned them. And there were other small things. The Federal Army tore down fences to use them to make bonfires and stuff. And of course, that made cattle and hogs get out and eat a lot of the crops and whatnot. But that leads directly into what you mentioned you wanted to talk about, because into that South Louisiana, St. Martinville destitution of the Civil War comes the publication of Longfellow's Evangeline in 1859. And that's the reason our park is named Longfellow-Evangeline, because what Evangeline as a poem did was, for the first time, it attracted interest of a greater American audience to the Acadians in South Louisiana. They recognized for the first time there's a whole culture of people that live down there that are not a product of immigration or a product of emigration. They're a product of settlement after an exile, right? So it's a very different culture. And people were fascinated, and they started coming here and spending money. So you see this huge explosion of people in this area naming everything after Evangeline. Evangeline hot sauce, the Evangeline steakhouse, Evangeline Foodway, Evangeline made bread. It's the Coca-Cola of South Louisiana, so that poem brought people for the first time to South Louisiana. They said, we want to see where Evangeline is. And what did the locals say? Man, Evangeline, that's my cousin on my mama's side, twice removed. I'm going to show you everything about her.
That is fantastic.
It became our big money maker. When we lost the plantation system, the gap between plantations and petroleum exploration was filled with Evangeline, with culture and tourism. So now in South Louisiana, you've got petroleum exploration and distillation. Then you have our agricultural economy, and then right under it is culture and tourism, because people are still coming here to hear the music, to see the sights, and face it, to eat the food, right?
Yeah, because it is so different. It's incredible to me when you hit Louisiana how different it is in such an incredible way. And even from folks that have been to New Orleans and you're like, oh, I'm good, I've been to Louisiana. No, you haven't. And you need to see New Orleans for what it is and experience that. And then you need to get to Western Louisiana, because the culture and the people are completely different. Night and day. It was amazing. I looked at Randy, I can't tell you how many times he said, I could live here. I could live here. The people are incredible. I could live here. Yep. Yeah. So it's fabulous. So
we really owe a debt of gratitude, and I think it's often forgotten. We owe a debt of gratitude to enslaved peoples that came here, because they brought with them a lot of these West African culinary traditions, which, let's face it, those are, demonstrably one of the most important parts of our culture. Things like jambalaya, things like okra, gumbo. Gumbo is the Yoruba word for okra, right? So we owe them a huge debt of gratitude, because it's a lot of their spices and flavor profiles that become what is Creole and Cajun food today. So there's a lot of French traditions in it too. There's a lot of Spanish traditions and Native American. Corn machu is a Native American dish, right? It's basically a succotash minus the beans, But so we owe a debt of gratitude to these people. And I think that it's unfortunate we tend to sort of push them aside and say, oh, it's the French tradition in Louisiana. It's like, well, no, we owe it to them. That's a lot of their flavors. Just like we did with blues music and rock and roll music. It's like, hey, you guys are doing something really cool. We're going to copy that too,
Right.
Exactly.
Like Elvis king of what? No, Elvis borrowed that,
Yeah. I want to leave enough time here to talk about Longfellow-Evangeline State Historic Site, which you were a ranger there. Maybe give us a grand overview of that plantation, what you've got going on there. Caly did mention that you offer some cooking classes there. You personally, maybe tell us a little bit about everything going on there and why some of our crazy RVers out there would like to come there and visit your plantation.
Yeah, so we're part of the state system. There's a few plantations in the state system, and we're very lucky in South Louisiana that Office of State Parks and the Department of Culture, Recreation, and Tourism recognize the distinctness of our plantation system in South Louisiana and keep them in the state park system. So we have Maison Olivier, which is a raised Creole cottage plantation home. And it's one of the only raised Creole cottage plantation homes left in South Louisiana, west of the Mississippi River, because most of those were torn down and something else was built in their place.
Yeah.
In historical terms, a lot of times we'll use the phrase preservation by poverty, meaning that the area was always too poor to tear down the historic buildings, and they got protected that way.
Isn't that amazing?
Makes sense.
Yeah, so in our case, they initially in the early 20th century, they wanted to turn us into a national park, but we didn't have the land for it. You needed 250 acres, and they only had 180. And then in comes Huey Long, this dynamic, crazy man, that we could do a whole podcast about Huey Long and how crazy he was. But he helped get it moving and shaking, that he said, look, anything that the federal government can do, the state government can do better. So he started a commission that in 1934 took over this property. And in 1936, we opened as Louisiana's first state park.
Wow.
So we are the oldest state park in Louisiana, and one of the oldest in the South. And what's interesting to me as a historian is the different changes in the way that this site has been discussed throughout history. For years, they bought into this Evangeline ethos, and it was, this is the house that Evangeline lived in when she lived in Louisiana, which is, I'm sorry, but kind of nonsensical. She's a folktale. She didn't live anywhere.
Yeah, right.
She lives in her mind.
Yeah.
She lives in pages.
Right.
It always tickled me. I'm like, so a 16-year-old girl goes into exile for 9 years, arrives in Louisiana, and builds a 2-story brick mansion. That doesn't make sense to me.
Exactly.
That's the way they told it. And then for many years, they called it Acadian House. When we were first put on the National Register of Historic Places, we called Acadian House. But we're not Acadian. We're Creole. But luckily, we had a lot of research done in the late 70s, early 80s. And now I really feel like we are a bastion of this Creole dynamic. And we talk about Cajun influence Louisiana, Creole influence Louisiana, Afro-Creole influence. We do guided tours on the hour from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day, except Sundays. Usually Sundays we don't have tours. But I teach a cooking class the first Saturday of every month. And I know you were limited for time because I could talk about food for like 6 hours. But
I'm super curious personally, but I think some of our viewers friends might be as well. Do you do any of your cooking classes where folks can join on like via Zoom or
that's
video?
What we talked about. We had an incident last year. We had a cabin that was hit by a tree in a storm, and I used to cook there on this open fire. Well, that cabin has been repaired. It's fixed now. And I'm in the process of building a kitchen outside of that, and I'm going to start Zooming our cooking classes. And we generally do the cooking classes all through the fall and spring, because once it hits summer in South Louisiana, I'll only want to talk about the history of salad because I don't want to cook.
Right. It's a little saucy there in the summertime.
It's not fait un petit peu chaud, tu comprends? It's a little hot to cook in South Louisiana in the summertime. But so what I do is I cook what would have been historically cooked at this time of year in this place, and we just pick a year that we have recipes for. So if it's March, we try to only cook food that they would have had available to them in March, food that had been dried or vegetables that you could pick in March. So we try to keep it very, they call it slow food. It's the slow food movement, and that's what we try to do.
Very, very
That's
cool.
so cool.
Now, I know, we're running out on time here, but before we go, you gave us some really great recommendations to get some really good food down there. We did take you up on one, but maybe for the listeners that are going to be going, and if we didn't make this apparent, I'm sorry, but we're talking, mainly about Lafayette here. That's where this is. But, all this happened in New Orleans and the Lafayette area, but we can't stress how much Lafayette's completely different than New Orleans. New Orleans is that's like Disney World versus
someone's backyard farm. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it because again, I can't say it enough. What blew me away is everywhere that we went, everybody was so incredibly
opening doors,
nice.
Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Yes, And even like going into places, I'm like, I've never had a cracklin before. They're like, well, here, you got to try one of each. You got to try all the cracklins. I'm like, okay.
Well, you don't even know this, Phil, but when we left there, your plantation, the next day, I told Caly, I'm like, let's go. I want to get a new vehicle. I'm thinking about the GMC Sierra, the AT4. I'm like, let's just go look at one just to, see what it looks like. I've never driven one. We ended up buying it there because the girl was so sweet, so
nice.
down to earth. We ended up buying a new car right there in Lafayette.
Yes.
But anyway, before we jump off here, give us some recommendations. Give us some places you'd recommend. Tell us what to get. You did that for us. We went. We took up your recommendation. I can't remember the name of the place.
I think it was the St. John's.
St. John's restaurant.
John's, sure. So I have to. The foodie that I am, again, I was influenced to cook by watching my grandparents cook and watching my dad cook and things like that. So my heart is in the home. So the first place I would send people is to get that simple, very dynamic Cajun food, boudin cracklings.
Oh,
you gotta have boudin cracklings.
Oh my gosh!
If you're going to go fishing, you're not going to catch fish if you don't start your day with boudin cracklings and a Dr. Pepper. It's just not gonna happen.
Amen. Now that I can't have it, I want it.
Right. Yeah. So, and it's not heart healthy. I'm not preaching health food right now. But Nunu's in Youngsville is one of my favorites. Bio's in Broussard, Billeauds, which, see, I know I'm throwing out some weird names here. They're saying, what is this French bastard talking about? Right? No, Nunu's and Bio's. You got to get boudin. You got to get cracklings. Just say, I want $5 worth of cracklings, and I want 2 links of boudin cut in half, and they'll take care of you. Most places, boudin cracklings is good. They have chicken cracklings now, which are to die for. It's basically thigh meat that's been just breaded, not lightly breaded and fried, and it's otherworldly, and it's why my back hurts because I have too much belly in the front now. But yes, in St. Martinville, after you've come to see me and done the tour here, you have to go to St. John's because St. John's, it's amazing. This guy takes 2 old pecan barns that were rotting and falling apart on the Bayou Teche, and within 10 years, they become the culinary destination in St. Martinville. The crab cakes are to die for. The frog legs are
crab cakes.
They are to die for. We had them on your recommendation, and oh my goodness, otherworldly.
And I've had them everywhere. I've had them in Maryland. I've had them in Massachusetts. I've had them all over. I don't know what they put in it, and I've threatened them at gunpoint to tell me, and they refuse to. But no, their crab cakes are incredible. Their gumbo is very good. Their cocktails are very good. So that in St. Martinville is absolutely worth it. But no, I encourage people, especially RVers, because my wife and I are RVers too. And when we go places, I do museums and food. That's what interests me. I Google top 5 places to eat and top 5 museums to go to. And I recommend in South Louisiana, just look around. Look around for shops that say boudin and cracklings on the sign, and stop in and get one link. Get a link and split it, and try it out, because that culinary tradition, that's all coming from the home. You can't make boudin angry. That's made with love, Yeah.
Yes, it is. And for folks that it's spelled Boudin. So me, the little Northeasterner, called it boudin, but no, that is wrong.
Boudin.
Boudin.
It's minced pork and the trinity, which is onion, bell pepper, garlic, onion, bell pepper, celery, mixed with rice and then stuffed into an organic casing. So it's a sausage, but it's a rice dressing type of sausage. And it's heavenly. As soon as we're done, I think I'm going to go get some boudin.
I know. Now I'm like, dang, I need some, and then some hot cracklings, because we went to Billy's and had some cracklings there.
That's my family. That's Billy Frey. That's my cousin, Billy Frey.
Really? Oh, fabulous. Yeah, it came highly recommended by a lot of people. I'm like, we got to go to Billy's.
Yeah, she walked out with like 4 of them or 6 of them, something like that, and ate them all herself.
You gotta love it, because you go in and it's fried boudin balls, and then they have fried corn on the cob and fried pork chops. And you're just like, did you guys just drop something into the fryer accidentally and just put it out for sale?
Like, yep, this will work.
Okay, give me one of each.
Well, Phil, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about the history and the culture down there, and of course your plantation that you work there at, and we want to encourage you, the RVers out there and everybody listening to the podcast here, to go down there and experience it. It is go see New Orleans, go do that, but definitely check out Lafayette in that area. There's just so much more. The culture's different. The food's different.
Everything's different. We're gonna be doing a featured destination on Lafayette and that whole area, New Iberia, and It's special.
In
It's
the
truly
magazine.
special.
We're going to be doing it in the magazine.
In the magazine. Yep. So
All
that's
right.
coming up.
You want to take us out?
Yeah. So thank you, Phil, so much for joining us today and talking again just about the history of the area and about Longfellow-Evangeline State Historic Site. It's incredibly, incredibly special. And we want to thank all of you out there for joining us in here today, whether you're listening on our audio podcast, and you can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts, or if you've joined us on YouTube, make sure you get out there and hit that subscribe button so that you are always up to date on our latest content. And don't forget our website, www.rvdestinationsmagazine.com. We have got some incredible stuff that we are working on behind the scenes. It's going to come out your way, hopefully very, very soon. Just some great, great resources that are going to really solidify us as the top RV destination content place you want to go to. So be sure to get out there and check us out. And we have already a ton of great free information that we're releasing on our website all the time. Plus, if you've not signed up for our newsletter, sign up for that, because then you can get fun stuff that gets sent to you in your email box. So yeah, I think that's it for all of my commercials for RV destinations. So we just want to thank you all. Thanks, guys, for joining us today.
Safe travels.
Safe travels, y'all.